Hi everyone, my name is Eric and I'm the developer of an upcoming action platforming game called GB Rover, which is a game about shooting your bosses and fighting for a better world. Wow, it's been a while since I said this, so it took me a moment to remember what the tagline was. Anyway, if you're interested in the game and like all that, you can wishlist it on Steam, which would be like a very nice thing to do. But anyway, let's talk about the previous week and all that other stuff. It's been a bit since I did the last of these videos, mostly because I think I said it in one previous video that I like switched my off days to like Monday and Tuesday. And it turns out like when you say that you're doing these devlogs on Mondays, then technically it's not an off day. So I decided to just like start doing these on Wednesdays instead, because Wednesdays are like when my like work actually starts. So that's the main reason for like it being now like a few days like off the usual schedule, but like from now on it should be always on Wednesdays. Anyways, let's talk about like what happened the previous week and what I had planned and how everything went and what I have like planned to do in the upcoming week. So it's really interesting to see this because I forgot a lot about what I did last week. Just seeing this, yeah, sure, I did this. Anyway, so it was planned for me to like adjust the Steam achievements because the game got a bit longer, which meant that like some of the play through the game more like quickly times and thresholds that I set up were kind of off. So I had to adjust those. I did that. I did fix a bunch of smaller bugs and smaller things. The overworld screen now has a pause menu, a very small one, and all that stuff. And I also fixed some other things that I completely forgot what I fixed, but I did fix some stuff. And also made some very minor adjustments to the platforming physics that like probably no one will notice but me, but I did that as well. I did add the new enemies to the credit sequence. I also made the end credits song a tiny bit longer so that the timing between both like segments is like roughly the same as it was before. And I'll probably have to adjust this like again because I am kind of planning on like making some like adjustments to the credit sequence at the end. But like it is what it is. Maybe I just don't do any changes, but it's kind of planned at some point to do that. And then I had kind of planned to maybe add idle animations to the enemies. Well, let's go to what I actually did. As I said, I did adjust the Steam achievements, I did fix the bugs, I did add the new enemies to this credit sequence, and then I spent a lot of time thinking about doing things and then deciding not to do them. Because I felt like early last week I looked at the list of stuff that I kind of said, okay, that's kind of left for me to do. And I looked over it and like felt like none of this is that high priority that I really should be spending time on it. Like it's not that big of a deal if I won't do it, and instead maybe I should try and focus my time on other things. That kind of led to a weird situation where like what I had planned for the week kind of got very, very vague, which led to me like trying to find things that I could do instead, which led to me having like several ideas of what I could be doing and then deciding to not do them, which was very confusing for me and everyone involved. Kind of like I had an idea for an intro sequence. I don't know if it was last week, but I did have an idea for an intro sequence, which was kind of cool, but then I figured like this would take a while and how much would it add to it, and I would have to like write another piece of music for it, and I felt like again it doesn't like it, and I talked a little bit about this during the streams on the weekend, that it felt a lot for me like me being afraid that what the game currently is not enough, and that like I don't know, people will take issue with it or like some other problems will come up, and I'm just like I just decided to basically put my foot down and say, okay, the game in the like basically in the way that it is now is going to be the game that is most likely going to come out in October. And I'm not doing much more with that, and like having to like again and like processing the stuff, and it's like if you've like followed these videos along a little bit, you probably will have noticed that this is like a constant thing, because again, like it's like you're always like, there are always moments where you don't have much to do, and then you think about stuff. Okay, what could I be doing? What am I doing enough? It's like, is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that I could be doing more effectively and more efficiently? And this is like how you end up like running into like several different directions, and that was kind of like the problem last week to some extent. Like I did like still like add some like levels for the endless attack mode and all that stuff, but it was still very much like, aside from that, very much like me being incredibly like to some degree insecure and like confused and all these kinds of things. And yeah, so but the good thing is, and this is like also like what I said, is that like we have now September 1st, which means that the deadline has passed for me to add anything to the game, and it's actually kind of good because like I did some like scheduling earlier this week just to see, okay, how much time do I have to do the things that I want to do? And it turns out it's not a lot, because like I was actually thinking about, maybe I just take this week off because I was feeling a bit tired and all that, and then I like looked at what I had to do and like realized, no, I can't do that. If everything goes really well, I might have like some time by the end of September to just not do anything. But as things are looking right now, I'm probably going to be busy until like the end of October, because again, you launch a game and you still have to like do stuff afterwards. So there's still work left to do. And yeah, so let's talk about what's coming now, because as I said, I'm not going to touch the game in any major way, unless something breaks horribly in some way, or like I get like something gets pointed out to me that like needs to be addressed in some way. And aside from that, I'm not going to touch it. So let's talk about what I do instead. So next week is going to be kind of important, because next week on Thursday, on September 9th, I think it's Thursday. Is it Thursday or is it Friday? I think it's Thursday. Yeah. Next Thursday, I am going to announce GB Rover's release date. And as unlikely as it is that it will get any kind of press coverage, there's still like stuff that I need to do. Because, again, it might be unlikely, but it's still a good idea to do something and not just say, no one will care about it anyway, and just not doing anything, because then like what's the point of like all of this? Like, you're not like spending the past few months like trying to like push this game as much as you can, and then like when the really important stuff like comes around, you just stop doing it. So there's stuff I want to do. I want to update the Steam page, because like the game has changed in like very tiny ways. In terms of like the visual presentation, like there are like some like small additions to it, and I would like to create a new trailer for the game, which basically like has the same structure as the old one but with new footage. I also want to like update the GIF that's being shown on the store page and the screenshots, and basically make these like what's on the store page reflect more the current state of the game and not the state the game was in a few weeks or months ago, which again isn't like, the differences aren't that huge, but there's still a difference, and I would like to like have the game be reflected in its current state and not the state that it was in like back in mid-May when I like did all this work already. So that's kind of like the big thing, or like the first step. It's like all of this is kind of like big stuff. Then I want to like, and I already did some of this work back in June, but I like really need to like dig down into it a bit more and like create a much more like comprehensive press list and contacts and folks that I want to contact about this, and then basically do all the stuff that needs to be done to actually announce the like date when the game is going to come out, and basically try and like do another big push next week to like get more people to pay attention to it, and basically also like in the process of doing that kind of like build a structure of how to like keep working and keep pushing on this for the next weeks after that, because there's like a bunch more stuff coming. There's the Steam Next Fest coming up, where I want to or have to like still make the demo and like have to prepare that, and like there's like stuff to be done, and that's what I meant is like I don't really have time to like now like work on some other large element to the game in some way, because this stuff is really important, and if I don't like put enough attention and effort into this, like whatever I add to the game will be completely pointless anyway, because no one will notice that it exists. Like I showed last week how incredibly hard it is for like a pixel platformer that has a fairly low price point or comparatively low price point to gain any amount of attention. So you really need to make sure, like if your goal is to sell your game, you really have to make sure that you do as much as you can to make people notice that your game exists. That doesn't mean that there's a guarantee that people will notice or that people will be interested. This is like also like an important thing to realize and to understand. Just because you're doing a lot of marketing doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. But it's not like, obviously it would be cool if it's successful, but the most important step of like this whole thing is to do it and to be consistent with it, have like a clear message that you want to communicate, and just like be consistent and stay the course like over time, and then something will happen. It might not be a lot, but it will still have some results that will be better than you just not doing anything and being like full of despair and like pessimism, which is hard because again you're like putting a lot of effort into stuff, and then you like send something out and no one notices or no one like picks up your message or whatever and like says that your game exists, or no one acknowledges what you did to some degree, and that can be very demotivating. And it's very, very like important to keep in mind that this is all a process, and you have to like, your goal has to be to keep the process going much more than it has to be that you need that you want to reach these kinds of numbers. Again, which doesn't mean that reaching these numbers isn't or wouldn't be like cool and important or whatever. But if you go into this stuff with the expectation to yourself that I'm going to like reach like that and that amount of number, and these press outlets will cover me, then it's very likely that you will set yourself up for disappointment. Not for everyone, but for like the most people. So instead, like saying, okay, I'm going to make this plan and I'm going to do it like with this structure, and I'm like, this is going to be the message that I'm sending out. These are the people that I'm going to address. And maybe pick one or two outlets out where I think it would be really cool if these people would cover my game. And just like try to achieve that. I think that's like a much more healthier approach to all of this. And this is basically how I'm going to try and do this. Again, very unlikely that it will yield sensational results, but it doesn't have to be. Again, this is like all of this, and I'm saying this as much to myself as I'm saying this to everyone else who might watch this. All of this is mostly for me to get more comfortable doing this stuff, and not as much to make sure that like it reaches the highest numbers possible. But anyway, that's kind of like the structure around that. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. again, I haven't done this in 4 years, and I was in a very, like, mentally in a completely different place back then when I did this with Splinter Zone. So I'm going to be like, it's going to be interesting to see if it goes differently or if it won't go differently. Because, like, there's like a part of me that thinks that it might go a bit different, just from like stuff that I've seen, like, before, because it's not a lot, but GB Robo has been picked up by, like, in some, like, very small places, without me doing anything, really. So this kind of, like, shows to me that, okay, maybe if I put a bit more energy into this, maybe we'll have different results. Also keeping in mind that technically I'm probably a bit late with that, with like a bit more than a month to go, and like only having, like, I think by the end, yeah, it'll be like roughly 4.5 months of like actual doing actual marketing, which again for like a commercial game and all that is probably considered more on the shorter side. Which again, yeah, okay, sure, but that's the resources and stuff that I have available. Like initially it was 2 months that I had planned, so like I'm like already like twice as long. So anyway, so that's all that's going on. One quick note in regards to the Steam playtest that I set up. A lot of people requested access, and after reaching 69 testers that had requested access and that got access, I decided because 69 is a very nice number for several reasons, and I decided to just close them like for now and probably until like the game's out, because I think it's like that should be enough people to gain some kind of feedback, I hope, in some way. So far I have seen some of it, which was helpful, but like not a lot. So that's the other thing, that like, cool, a lot of people have requested it, but since it's not a very structured environment, and this is like, I'm not blaming anyone who hasn't like said me anything really, and because it's not a very structured environment, there's no guarantee that anyone would like sends over anything or like gives you any kind of feedback. So this is like also like me learning or understanding how to maybe like use this feature within Steam like in the future, and like this was kind of like a very much like, okay, let's try it and see how it goes. And let's put it this way, if I were to use it again, I would probably try and make it much more structured than I did this time around, because again, like if all you have to do is just like press one button and yeah, sure, I'll get access to the game, and then you get access to the game and you've completely forgotten about it because there's like 80,000 different other things that you could be doing. So like why then play this one platforming game when you could be doing other things? So it's a bit of a weird thing, and like I had much more success doing like a very small playtest on itch.io in that regard so far. But again, I think that has largely to do with the way how you set this up, the way Steam as a platform functions versus like itch.io works, and like who you're like basically who is interested in doing that and all that kind of stuff. So that's not really me saying, oh, Steam playtests are useless and whatever. It's more like me understanding that, okay, if I'm doing this in the future, I need to put more thought into it, that it's actually creating both an interesting experience for the people that do playtesting, because they're like technically doing work for free for me, which is and also making sure that like it's structured in such a way that I'm actually getting useful information out of it, because right now I haven't gotten really that much, which is a bit frustrating, because again, getting feedback that close to release would be nice, just to see, okay, how as I said, like when I set it up, how close to my expectations or to what I think the game is this game actually, and how should I maybe adjust my expectations in that regard. But yeah, anyway, that's all of that. And yeah, so again, be prepared. Next week there will be like a launch date announcement on September 9th. And then we'll go from there. There will be a lot of shouting from my end on Twitter about that, like next week and all that stuff. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, so anyway, so that's it for today, and for this week. I'll see you again next week, and until then, please follow me on Twitter at Mokograd. You can subscribe to an email newsletter where there will be only very, like, rarely announcement, but larger announcements. For example, like the release date that is going to be announced, that will be an email. And yeah, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you want. And like, most importantly, please wishlist GB Robo on Steam. That would be very, very cool if you could do that. There's like plenty of stuff to come still, like in terms of like the things that you could experience. Like again, Steam Next Fest is coming up next month. There will be a demo of the game. Still thinking about how I would like to do it and maybe make it a bit interesting and all that stuff. So there's like still stuff to come. But yeah, it's going to be fun. One more month and then it's going to be out, and then, well, then we'll know what all of this is. Isn't that great? Anyway, I hope you have a nice week, and I'll see you like next week, I guess. Bye.